Hello, everyone. It's Aunt Nikki of Your Story Hour. Are you guys ready for the last chapter of Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Mo, and Still Mo? Let's see what's going on with our friends. I'm looking forward to this. Chapter 28. Carry On. The forest world went on about its busy living. Everywhere was the hum of seasonal activity. The first touch of autumnal splendor was appearing in the trees. Another summer had passed, another fall was beginning, another winter just beyond, another spring on the horizon. In the measureless vault of nature there is an endless supply of seasons to deck the world with interest and loveliness throughout ages to come. Ginny and I found time to be on the trails occasionally. We visited our rediscovered squints and saw with satisfaction that they were preparing ably for their second winter in the North Country. We searched and searched for the valley where Duke had seen the old porcupine Inky. We hoped that the summer might grant us just one more miracle and let us find our valued friend. We found many valleys which seemed to fit in with Duke's description of the place where Inky had come to him, but our bequilled friend did not respond to our calls. There came a day when I wished I had some mystic power wherewith I might call all the creatures about us for a few moments. There was something I wanted to share with them. I would choose for our meeting a certain hillside that forms a natural amphitheater and gather in the wood folk from far and wide. I would want Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Mo, and Still Mo there in the front row, if they could stop their bantering with one another long enough. Near them I would place Stubby, Badger Boy, Mrs. Badger Boy, Junior, and the other chipmunks of the island, though while I was wishing, I had better wish for a stone wall to put between them and the squints. I would want old Bluey and his blue-feathered relatives to perch in a convenient tree and shut up, for goodness sake, and listen. I would call the great eagle that soars close to the clouds, the deer that graces the shorelines, birds that sing at evening tide, with all other creatures, trees and plants, so that I might read them a certain invaluable letter from Duke. And if microphones were at hand to carry his word over international networks, it would be better still. It was a sort of thank you letter. Duke had thanked Ginny and me until we were embarrassed. We were grateful to have served him in any way, and it seemed little enough to do for a lad who had given the world so much. He said, "Expressing gratitude seems to help finish the blessings I have received. Please, if you get the chance, thank all those little guys that live in the woods themselves, the trails and lakes, and the solitude that rests there. Only now am I realizing fully what they did for me. They brought me closer to God." There is the message I wanted to read to chattering, jabbering, rustling little folk of the forest. They had taken part in a miracle. Their very presence had contributed to the greatest blessing a man may know in life, being brought closer to God. It is probable that all people and creatures who live up to their highest ideals are vastly more important than they realize. A great half-hidden purpose is being fulfilled in the world, and trees with their busy leaf-growing, flowers with their blooming, birds with their singing and nest-building, squirrels and chipmunks with their nut-gathering, all add up to a magnificent influence which summons forth the thought of God near and dear. What a glorious thing they have done! Duke expresses the message I would have for the woodland congregation. The days I spent alone on the sanctuary trails deep in the forest, what treasures they are! They stay alive and vivid. I have my notebook written there, and I read from it constantly. Nothing that I saw or experienced must get away from me. It is a sort of super K ration that I feed on when the mental diet here is filled with confusion. You must have known all along that I wasn't just out on solo picnic up there. I had a grand time at the hiking and wandering around, but there was more to it than that. Something in my thought had to be settled. I didn't know just how to put it, but maybe you will understand this. I had to know how I stand with God. That what little I know of him seemed to leave him so far away. The effect of prayer had been proven to me, but it gave me no comfort to think of us mortals being in a mixed-up, trouble-filled world, even though he would help us if we just got desperate and prayed loud enough. But out in the woods I began to realize that the feeling of separation was in myself, nowhere else. Everything I did made me feel closer to him. I prayed without ceasing, not for some special blessing or favor, but just to understand. And the answer came to me when I touched those mounds of cushioned moss, when I walked among trees, felt them close, intimate, and friendly with me. The very touch of my feet upon the earth increased this feeling of oneness with the Creator. Even rain pelting down upon me brought me closer. Then came that day old Inky walked up to me so friendly-like. This was natural, real, and it made all the rough, savage, and cruel things seem unnatural. Against the grain of nature, the imagined space between God and me largely disappeared that day in the little valley where I left your compass. If old Inky were in our fancied forest audience and heard this, I can imagine his reaction. He always looked so complacent and self-sufficient anyway. He would chatter his teeth a little, shake his quills, and look up as if to say, "Ah, balsam juice! How in a hemlock could you ever feel far from God? You humans make me sick. You get so involved and tangled. You couldn't get separated from your Creator any more than a sunbeam can get away from the sun." Duke's letter was filled with thoughts worthwhile. "There's one tiny violet I would like to thank, he said. "It was somewhere on the hillside to the east of Vanishing Lake. Just tell it that it brought me into a feeling of humility that I wish everyone in the world might experience. That day I sat on the hillside to eat every last crumb of the fine lunch lovely Jenny had given me. Then near my feet, so close I had nearly stepped on it, I discovered that tiny little violet, just poking its head up through the old leaves. I remember saying aloud, 'You have a lot of crust coming up in a big world like this.' Then I began looking closely at it. It seemed to me that some new kind of light shone on it and brought out more beauty than I had ever noticed before. Of course, it was just my own thinking awakening, but it was so sudden I couldn't understand it at first. The color and form of the little flower were simply amazing. Its beauty was so captivating, I said, 'Little guy, how do you do it?' I guess I didn't expect an answer, but I got one. It came as the realization that the flower didn't do anything. It wasn't its own creator. It was the beautiful result of some power vastly greater than itself. Strange how things come to a fellow at a time like that. I haven't read Scripture much, not nearly as much as I should have, but I remembered instantly the words, 'I can of my own self do nothing.' How that applied to the violet, to the trees, to me, and everything in the universe. I can't carry the idea much further without talking over my head, but certainly it was clear to me that this world is the work of God, and while I am part of His creation, I can't even make a violet. Everything took on a new and higher importance to me that afternoon. After that, our squints, chipmunks, birds, porkies, and all things that go to make up this world. Each living thing is a lesson, a parable to be understood, something we can go by and grow by. Boy, what a different look the world has when you see it that way and how close the Creator is to His creation. But do you know, I couldn't quite accept all this until word came that the lute was alive. I guess I would have got beyond the hump some time or other by thinking and praying on, but it seemed the lute just had to be with me and I couldn't give him up. We have been through a lot together, and the old boy rings true every step of the way. A world without him looked mighty empty, but when word came that he was okay, it finished the picture for me. I am determined to hold on to all this faith that the forest has helped me gain. For I have the conviction that this is what every one of us must do sometime, some way, find out how he stands with God. What happens in war or in peace depends on that, and I wish everyone in the world could go alone out on forest trails, just looking and listening to nature for days as I did. It is a way to find God so close to yourself that you are one with him. Then Duke's letter talked of plans that sounded real and wonderfully close. When the job was done, he wanted to come back to those same forest trails. He would bring Lieutenant Stillmo, kimono and all. They would dive into solitude and stay until their thoughts were washed free of the scars of war. For, wrote Duke, we still need the sanity of nature for our work and peace even more than in war. The responsibility will be even greater. Our problem now is in a war that is man-made. When the nightmare is done, we want to go back to the world that God made until its sweet influence teaches us how to live. Please keep it ready for us. And there is your commission, all you nature folk. That is why I wanted to call you together. Go on about your growing, your living, all of which make up such a wonderful world. Duke and the many like him are going to need you. Eeny, Meeny, Miney, Mo, and Stillmo, smooth out your coats and rehearse your funniest capers. Inky, Salt and Pepper, waddle around and practice being porcupines. All you birds and beasts, get busy at your woodland lives. You trees and flowers, you sunsets and dawns, you stars and rainbow that make life lovely, live on in increasing splendor. You mountains, hills, valleys, lakes, and streams, get out your grandeur. Enrich all solitude, deepen all silence, and is within your sacred power to point the thoughts of tired people to God. Thank you for joining us for Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Mo, and Stillmo by Sam Campbell. It's always great fun hanging out with you guys. Remember, if you want to, you can always go back and listen to the stories again. Take care.